One of the biggest promises of entrepreneurship is either the passive income business or the lifestyle business or the exit. And I've had all three. I had an exit. It wasn't the kind of money where you never have to work again, but it was enough money not to have to work for a few years and to be able to figure out what was next. And I also had a lifestyle business. So I had a business that I created where I professionalized a mom and pop family business and got it to the point where not only me, but my parents could create the life around the business. So the business really wasn't the point. The point was the lifestyle. And that came from professionalizing the business systems. And then the third thing I did, which was a little more recently, is the virtual company passive income approach. So getting the company to the point where I didn't have to do anything. And I haven't worked in the company. This is my not Red Pill Pathway or the Entrepreneur Experience. This is a company we call OpGen now, Opportunity Generation. It used to be called Call Sales Partners. And it started as a lead generation company, and I worked my ass off to make it happen. But the goal was eventually not to do the work, and that happened. And then it was working on the business, and then it was not working on the business or in the business or anything in relation to the business, and just taking passive income because I partnered with someone who used the business as a lifestyle business for himself. I'm going to close my window. We got lawnmowers. Um, this is the home office dilemma. So my first office had an office employees. My first business had an office, W-2 employees. We paid their health care. We had owned vehicles. We had product samples. We had customers that came in the office, and we worked with them. And we fought against competing regional sales offices for territory. That's called the old world. Um, and it worked. And it was a very, very complex system. And we used technology was always the barrier and the solution. So figuring out relational databases for a guy like me is really difficult. And I did it because you had to have the right kind of reporting. So the manufacturer calls, and we were a sales office for manufacturers, Reebok, DKNY, Nautica, hip hop product lines. It was all product. So it was about consumer branding, influencer marketing, products. And we were the distribution arm. So I worked with Nordstrom and Marshall Fields at the time. It was bought by Macy's. And then we had a territory of, I don't know, 700 specialty stores across 15 states that we built up in multiple distribution channels. And basically it started with mom, dad, and grandma. And I turned it into a professional distribution company. So we could do what we wanted. So what I've learned from that is the power dynamics in markets. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to talk about power dynamics in markets. You got to know where you stand in the market. We had power in some markets and not in others. So I was able to leverage our power as the intermediary between the market and the manufacturer that wanted that market. We gave them access to that market. And we had a moment where our customers would sit down and say, how much time do you need? And they would just spend with us. And we dominated that market as an intermediary for big companies, even though they didn't care that much about our business. It was so small for them, Reebok or people like this. But then boutique manufacturers, for us, we were 20% of their revenue. So it mattered. And they couldn't do it without us. That changed. The dynamic shifted because the mom and pop customer got sophisticated. And then they figured out how to go direct to the manufacturer at trade shows in New York, or they developed their own relationships. It got different. It was different. Nordstrom used to buy mostly regionally from us in the Midwest region, but they buy all over the world, and they make their own private label. So there's all kinds of stuff that goes on with change. So the point is, it's not about the form that these things take. It's about market dynamics and where you are in the market. That's what matters. And whatever is unique about you, this is what I know now, is anybody can figure this out because you got to figure out what's unique about you. What I noticed is a lot of people are just putting lipstick on the pig. In other words, they're trying to figure out the marketing. and they're buying how to create a seven-figure passive income business that's only about how to do it. In other words, the form that business is going to take in the world, as opposed to the product. What do you got? We had a great product. We had a team. I had it started with just me traveling around in a van, selling door to door, basically, and getting on airplanes like a maniac. And it got to 8 to 10 people and vans and reports and a professional distribution company. And that comes from recognizing what your product is. And my product was, my dad was good at the money and the finance. My mom was good at working with the customers in a process. And I was good at making it happen and being in what's next all the time. It was a perfect team. I just didn't want to work with my parents. I didn't even see it as a real job, but I made a ton of money and I got to travel all over the world and do whatever I wanted. And I was not some spoiled kid just working for their parents, because it didn't exist when I started. I created it. The business was there, but it was a mom and pop. So the whole idea is, what's the product? In other words, what are you? What do you have? So it starts with the product. So you're going to build a virtual passive income company, a lifestyle company, anything like this. You got to know what you got. Your power is in what you got. Be a market of one. If you do it originally, nobody could copy us, because I was so far ahead and I kept running faster than everybody else. So the minute I'd figure something out, people would copy us. And then I'd reinvent it. And then they couldn't copy because I was going so fast. They were looking backwards at what I'd done sometimes and other things I was noticing. And I'm running ahead. Now, this is not Mark Andreessen stuff, or Larry Ellison, but it's the same principles. It's just knowing what you're really good at. And I'm good at business development and entrepreneur structures and figuring out how to do more with less, with no money. I've figured it out because I just naturally know how to do that. You got something like that. You got to find it, build from that. Then you'll have a leverage in the market. People have no leverage today because they're just focusing on the selling and the marketing and the lead gen and the social media content and the how do I do it stuff. It's backwards. And everyone else is doing it. And then it's worse because they're speeding it up with AI. So you're speeding up something, lipstick on a pig, that's not good in the first place. In other words, it's just copying how to create a seven-figure business. Well, don't you think other people took that course? How to differentiate your coaching practice. Don't you think other people took that course? How are you going to differentiate it if you're copying how to differentiate your business course? Instead of thinking, what is it about me as a coach or a consultant or an entrepreneur that's special? It's not the thing you do. It's the combination of everything. It's who you are and the stuff you know how to do and what you know and the experience that you have and the interrelationship of all those things told in a simple way with a group of people who care because you took some arrows for them, like I did with business development. I've taken all the arrows, and I've also done it for inner development, which is knowing myself through being in a lot of inner development, personal development, mindset work since I was 17 years old. So the intersection of these things is what led to the entrepreneur experience and Red Pill Pathway. So I'm going to talk about the next thing I got into, which was I worked in creative agencies. So they had cool spaces, creative and technical experts, and they invested in digital technologies. And that agency I worked in, those three owners were mom and pop thinkers. They weren't mom and pop thinkers. It was a mom and pop in an industry of commoditization. In other words, digital creative agencies. And I had to sell this stuff. And what I learned was they were the best. They did Gatorade's National Sales Convention. They worked for the CMO. They were a partner of choice for Accenture for the big customer experience events that Accenture ran. And one of the salespeople there, a peer of mine there, did big projects for telecom companies, road shows and stuff. And now I'm there and I found my own niche in it. I didn't copy anybody there. I found my own niche and I got into Baxter. I got into a tech company called Comdisco as that was hot. I got into BP Amoco. And before I did pharma, so Eli Lilly, and then I got into a steel company when that existed in the U.S. because it was in Chicago, and Inland Steel. We got a deal for that with them, and I got this off cold calls. Um, how? Um, well, what was pretty cool was that this company was perfect in its balance. So the same thing. What's the product? The product was a founder that knew how to money worked. Nobody in these creative agencies knows how to manage the money, and he figured out how to make money. Um, and he had a software tool called Clients and Profits, and he figured out how to use it. Most companies couldn't do that. So the creative services agencies never got past. I did lead gen and sales with my sales outsourcing company. We started with creative services agencies of all kinds, ad agencies, marketing agencies, branding agencies. We even got hired by lead gen agencies, digital marketing agencies hired us to get them clients, even. And what I noticed with all of this agency stuff is that they never get past 1 million in revenue. They get stuck. And these guys that I work with got up to, I think, 6 or 7 million. And then they sold it to what I call a financial bot. So this is the precursor of private equity. And then I quit immediately. And I took the summer off and did a big sailing trip to the UK, sailed across the North Atlantic, and screwed around and raced sailboats in Chicago. And then I ended up taking over my family's business because I thought it was going to be easy and I could just do what I wanted. It turned out to not to be the case because the market shifted completely. The power dynamic shifted because of the internet and retail changes in China, manufacturing, all that impacted. Um, Sorry, the dogs. God, working at home sometimes. It's brutal in some ways. Um, so yeah, I used to have offices and I went to co-working. I've been in like 7, 8 co-working spaces over the years. And then with the pandemic, I left Industrious downtown Evanston. I had my own office there. It was only like $700 a month. It was amazing. And it was 5, 10 minutes away. Now I'm working at home still. I like the home office because I have all my books here and I'm in and out of my books all day long. So I learn so much from the books. I use the books. I don't just read them. I use them. Um, so what's going on with creative agencies, service companies, and all this is the owners. There's no balance. So what these guys had that worked is first one of Dan, who was kind of like the president of the company, knew how money worked, and he was a process maniac, and he was also really good at production. So he could sit there with nerves of steel. Michael Jordan's on stage and he's in charge of what Michael Jordan's going to do next. And you don't press the wrong button. CMO of Gatorade's there and Michael Jordan, and he pressed the right button and he could do that. That's a rare skill. So that company had real product quality is important, but it's a commodity because there are 1 million other people doing this and other people could do what he did just as good. So with the same kind of clients. So I remember going and selling this stuff and they'd say, well, maybe in a couple of years we'll let you in because we already have a vendor language because they're selling to corporate communications departments in these massive corporations. So it's very process oriented. You go through purchasing and I went around all that crap. That's how I got business. I wasn't going to get in line. So the second partner was a creative director. So he could figure out how to pull people together. And he didn't do a lot of the work himself. He figured out, let's get a video editor, let's get a design director, let's get a project manager. And they built out a company, 70 people. And I think I was number 14 or 13 or 12 or something in sales. Smart way to do it. And then they just kept going, as the millions rolled in over time. That's rare for creative services companies, agencies to do this. The third partner, he called himself vice president in charge of lunch. He was a lot more than that. And what he did is he let me have a year to make money. And the money partner didn't like me for a while because I wasn't coming in. I was coming in past 9 o'clock because I'm making cold calls all day long and I'm exhausted. It was a brutal job. It's really hard, but I'm good at it and I like doing it. But you burn out. And now I was in a mental hospital before I took this job too. So I'm going to tell that story. I've written about it a little bit. I've talked about it a little bit. So I started the job coming out of a state of chronic depression from having bipolar. And I started right out of the hospital. So the Herculean effort just to get through the day, much less cold calling to giant corporations, having no idea what I'm doing really, wasn't easy. And Todd, who's my boss, the sales guy there, partner. So they let the sales guy be the partner, a partner. That's unusual in these service companies. They don't look at sales as equal. They look at business developers and sales as help me get in the door, help me get on the bid list. They used to call it. In other words, go turn over the rocks. So business development is not the same as lead generation. Business development is creative motion in a marketplace, seeing what's next and where the opportunities are. That's partner level stuff. And he was a partner, Todd. So when they got into Accenture, it was because he was there. He built the relationships, and the call comes at Friday. He told the story. 4 o'clock, the call comes. Our company we've been working with for marketing communications screwed up. Can you guys bail us out? The answer is yes. The phone calls go out. All hands on deck. Let's do this. And the client never leaves. So when they sold the company to the bots, private equity, think about it, just private equity bots. They're bots. They just want money. They don't know the industry. It fell apart. I left, and then within a year or so, I think maybe 2 years, all the talent left. Everybody started their own companies, or went to work for somebody else. Because why would you want to work for a bot? um, so I got into marketing insurance and marketing technology and, flowing through the market. But let me go into this passive income thing. So um, the virtual plunge that led to Call Sales Partners, which is now OpGen, which is my passive income company, and Glenn, my partner in it. I made him a 50% equity partner. I didn't have to do that, but I don't want to work at it. I don't want to work on it. I don't even get a report. I didn't even know we did 1.5 million last year until like 4 months ago, because I was getting my check. um, so, um, so I noticed this co-working thing, online gigs, global talent economy, and I got sick of working for software companies because they suck. Software startups are horrible to work for unless you own it or you have equity. And in sales, you don't want to work for one of these people. They're owned by like money people, VCs, private equity, because the founder isn't in charge after a while. They take money and then they're not in charge anymore. And they look at you as a coin operated salesperson. And that's what I did. But I don't think that way. I'm like a partner level thinker. But, I'm not Silicon Valley, so they didn't see me that way. But I did, and I succeeded. And I got business for these people. I got them one company into network data, networked insights, social data analytics company. I did all the work for Samsung. Samsung was competing against Apple. It was very innovative, brilliant people. They used unstructured data in a system called Hadoop. It was early AI, but it was really services. They sold it like software and dashboards, but it wasn't. There was a bunch of cooks in the kitchen behind the scenes. So there was a lot of manual iterative understanding of data. Data is complex, but it's super cool company. I got him into Allstate, and then I got fired because the deal was too small. All the money was going from the CIO to the CMO, and that's going into the customer consumer insights group. And I knew that business really well, so I figured out how to cold call into it. I got a deal, and the legal fees on the deal ate up a lot of the profits. And I call them financial bots. These people, my head of sales was a CFO. He worked for he was a private equity. He had no idea what I was doing, and I didn't know how to explain it to him. And my mentor, Jed Jacobs at the time, was like, just prove it. And I did. He says, get them a logo client and they'll start to support you. They supported me. They just didn't get what I was doing. The head of sales never closed any business, and they loved this guy because he was arrogant. He really was. And I wasn't. I was humble because I was just trying to figure it out. Um, so that's weird to people who are arrogant. Private equity, they think in grids, So I call them financial bots because I loved the business. I loved the data, figuring it out, how to talk to the marketers, the insights people, the consumer people. So I succeeded, and I did it with another company called Optimine, bid optimization AI tool for Google AdWords, and I figured it out. and I marketed it myself. I created a customer user event in Chicago. Realized these corporations are never going to buy this stuff because they don't want to change anything. So I found people that were smaller but had big money. One was called Innova Financial. They were in the UK. Well, they're big global operation, but or US, and I don't know where they are, but anyway. So financial services. Financial services is a really hard time with lead generation. Google's crushing them. So how do you get these people to give you 5 grand for a pilot to test a bid optimization system on their active live Google AdWords account? Well, they were struggling because every new lead they got from their media spend in the UK was not profitable because of Google. It was costing too much money. Google has a bid optimization system built into the system, and so did all the data technology platforms, companies called Kenshu and Marin at the time. And I learned this market in like 5 minutes. But doing the work and getting the results is hard because it's the markets all work the same. The reason I'm saying all this is, what is your product? Who are you? What are you good at? I was good at business development, figuring this stuff out, and I could do it in like a couple of weeks. And then I'm in the market, iteratively moving forward in action. And I got in the right room, as I've always been able to do, got a deal closed and got fired. So the point is, now I'm noticing co-working. I'm noticing. So I use LinkedIn, and I was able to start a virtual company that turned into this. We were at 4 grand in the second month. I only had one client. He was a lead gen company in the Central Valley in California. And I was like, shit, we should be partners. But he didn't want to do that after a year. He was already past 1 million. But he was paying me like 8, 10, 12 grand a month. And I was making cold calls myself. And, frankly, and I told him, I said, I'm setting up my own company. I'm sorry. And I won't raid your book of business. And I don't do that stuff. Some of them called me, but I didn't get clients from him. Later I did, because, I think his thing fell apart, but because he was doing other things, because he's a very smart entrepreneur, content marketer, excellent at it, figured out lead gen when you could send out emails and fill up your calendar. So I did that, and I built a virtual company. And that's how I met Glenn, who was in the UK, in Spain. So he was a refugee from the bots, Wall Street bots. He's an attorney, investment banker, and knows how to do deals. And he's doing sales with me, right? How do you do that? Remote Co. It's Flex Jobs company. Stacy was an eating disorder therapist who knew how to keep her kids organized, set up the data department. That's really hard to do. Nick Brennan, this guy, a brilliant organizational person. And I dropped the reins, and I was like, I can't figure it out, Nick. And he did. He built the infrastructure of the company. This guy, Kanai Kavadia, who's an expert in Salesforce. He built the Salesforce instance. And then we're like, let's get out of Salesforce. It sucks. But that was a few years later. And we got into a system called Close, which was perfect for sales prospecting. But we had to integrate email into it. So the point is, when you see what's next and you're in it, you're going to succeed because it's what's next. Not with the marketing. You don't start with the marketing. You start with the product, and the product gets built in the market, in flow, in action, from imagination. This is how Mark Andreessen built Mosaic and Netscape. This is how Larry Ellison built Oracle. This is how Steve Jobs built Apple. It's the same stuff. But theirs are bigger, because their brains are bigger than mine. But I did what I did. Well, all of it gears up towards having this passive income business, and this is the point. So the passive income business for me it's not for me anymore. It was not a good financial practical decision to turn that business over to somebody to run and give up 50% equity in it, when I didn't have to. And the guy in California could have done that with me, and it may have been a bad decision. I don't know, probably would have been, but it was a good one for me. And I'd worked through Gino Wickman's stuff in a book called Traction, EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System. None of it worked. The E-Myth didn't work. None of that stuff worked for me. But what did work was the simple concept of drop the rope. And I did. September 20th, 2020. And I was like, Glenn, can you run this company? He brought the idea to me. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted by this company because it wasn't my destiny. So now we're getting into this the real stuff here now. So what came next is even better. So what I'm doing now is global collections of like-minded people that are formed into profitable groups based on shared desire. That's what I do now. That's the entrepreneur experience in the Red Pill pathway. It took me 4 years. And did I almost lose everything doing this? Um, yeah, yeah, I did. But I didn't. I'm not going to lose everything because that's not how it works. But there is a moment of running up against the wall where there's a feeling of, boy, this is a bad idea. And that usually comes from your spouse. In my case, it did. This was like a year ago, is just, I started Sales Sherpa. I figured it out, right? I was online in the pandemic and I'm noticing what's next coming. And I thought, I don't know what this is, but I'm learning all these content-based networking. Set up a podcast. The podcasts are your guests are your clients. Sales funnels as a pipeline, challenges, on and on and on. How all of this works. Copywriting, content authority marketing. So I'm doing all of this, setting up scalable coaching program systems, creating free events to build your reputation in the marketplace, and then make offers. And I'm doing this, doing this, doing this. And then when Solopreneur Inc., well, I went through sales. It started with a LinkedIn posting group. 235 people joined my LinkedIn posting group in like 2 weeks. And then I set up a Zoom event, November 2020, 70 people showed up. And then I'm like, okay, let me invite people in the market. There's this concept called other people's audiences. So I invited people in the market who already had audiences to partner with me. In other words, hey, I'll give you a stage. So that went on for a couple of years, and I'm rolling out products and I'm learning offers from Alex Hormozy and Russell. I'm doing all these things. And then in February of 2023, with Solopreneur Inc., I'm like, I figured it out. I got the virtual campus and the coaches are coming and some people signed up, and I built it in school. So again, what's early? Sam Ovens started school, and I'm like, wow, Mighty Networks is crushing me. I already did Circle. I did Slack group. Discord's too confusing. Justin Welsh did that for audience or income and profits, or audience and profits. He closed it and he went to Slack instead of Discord. And I'm like, oh my God, and I programmed all this crap myself pretty much. And school. And one of the guys from Call Sales Partners, this guy, Dave, brilliant genius, was helping me with this. And we were partnering on Solopreneur Inc. and started working. And I realized I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it because the coaches are showing up and they want me to get to, well, how do we get business? And I'm like, go run into that burning building and report back. And then a week later, they're like, well, you're not doing anything. Like, what do I do? I'm like, go run in that burning building. They're not entrepreneurs. They're coaches. People are trying to teach them how to be marketers and networkers and salespeople. They're not. They just want to help people. And I'm like, I got to give them people their money back. So I still haven't given it all back, but I gave a lot of it back to the coaches. And because I'm like, this isn't going to work. And I don't want to do this. In school wasn't working at all. It's not the right platform for a community, and none of them are. And then I found Welo later, but that's a whole nother story. That's the virtual video metaverse. So the idea is really, the product is you. The product is me. I'm a what's next person. I'm an entrepreneur. I think ahead. I see in the creative zeitgeist what's coming for business development, lead gen, sales, entrepreneurs. How do you work for yourself stuff? Because that's what I've always cared about. And I also see what goes on with inner development, personal development mindset, because I've been doing that since I was in AA at 17. And then I've rolled through so much of it. So I have massive experience in bootstrapped, how do you make money for yourself stuff, and inner development, and seeing markets, because I've been in so many different industries. I can see the trends across all the industries. That's my thing. And then the idea of bringing community together, I learned that because I've been in so many groups. So how do we take inner development, personal development mindset and intersect it with business, lead generation, sales, CEO roundtable stuff? And I'm like, that's what we did with entrepreneur experience. And then I'm like, well, how do I do this without having to market it? So we came up with the idea of claim your guest pass. Now there's a we here. That's the point. So if you go to claim your guest pass, you go to the events link. Those are my founding partners. Now it's my company, but we've interlaced our economic interests. I couldn't do this myself. There's no way. Without those people, the product wouldn't be as good. It would just be my stuff. Plus, I couldn't have finished the damn technology. It's too complicated. To do Go High Level, Notion, a new technology, Wilo, video metaverse, integrated all these things together with the tagging working behind the scenes and Discord as our community platform to collaborate back and forth. There's no way I could have done it by myself. And I did this with a virtual assistant that has never done anything like this before. That's the point. Choose your own adventure. Don't copy me. What are you about? What do you like? What do you want to do? Do it and do it with other people. That's what we're here for, to help you do that. I'm not going to upsell you or pitch you. I have no inner sanctum private rooms and $50,000 mastermind groups. It's all available. Because to me, that's what's next. All right, I'm going to take about 10 minutes. I got stuff going on. It's pretty busy right now. Oh, shoot. I can't stay on. I got a meeting.